Welcome aboard with Fish Out of Water, your beacon in the foggy, uncharted ocean of post-COVID health struggles. We've suffered ourselves and spent a fortune seeking answers, but we are finally finding those answers and healing. Now, we're sharing them. Together, we'll chart a course to recovery.
Hello, everyone. We are live here on Fish Out of Water podcast. My name is Tim Husserow.
And I am Rick Reed. Good morning.
I am the CEO of Fish Out of Water, a non-for-profit that helps individuals that are suffering from long COVID or vaccine injury.
I'm the president of Fish Out of Water. As Tim says, we're a 501c3 nonprofit corporation. And we're here today to spread some love and hope. So, Tim, tell these wonderful people how this all got started.
Okay. So, long story. I'll try to get through it pretty quick. Let me get my notes. So I developed COVID December 5th, 2020. And just to give you a little background before 2020, I was a endurance athlete.
Yep.
I worked out 6-7 days a week, completed 75 hard multiple times, ran on little sleep and just could do anything I wanted until I got COVID. First 2 or 3 days was actually kind of fun because it didn't have smell or taste, and my kids would come in and give me shots of hot sauce or vinegar, and we'd take those, and I couldn't taste a thing, and they thought it was hilarious. Day 4 and day 5 got pretty serious. I'd try to get out of bed, and just walking to my counter, 40 feet away from my bed, I'd collapse and start suffocating. And it's just something I've never felt. I felt like my soul was leaving my body. Just the weirdest feeling of death that came across me. And so I went and laid in bed, and my wife kept saying, "You got to get up, got to get up." I'm like, man, every time I get up, I collapse. Until I woke up with my computer in my face, and it's my doctor, and she's like, "You got to get up." And I'm like, I can't get out of bed. And she's like, if you don't get up, we're going to have to take you to the hospital. And I'm like, "Doc, I'm just going to die here because I'm not going to the hospital." And so I passed out, and I woke up, and my wife comes in the room, and she's like, "The doctor called you in methylprednisolone steroids." And so she hands them to me, and I open the box and I read the directions, and it says, take 2 in the morning, 2 in the afternoon, and 2 at night. And it's 1:30 in the afternoon. I'm like, I'm kind of in the middle of the day. So I took all 6 at once. Great idea.
Yeah, probably not.
Don't recommend it to anyone. But anyway, so I lay back in this zero gravity chair, and I remember I ate something and I passed out, and I woke up to like those electrical chargers hitting your chest.
Ooh.
It just boom, it just jumps me out of my chair. And before this, I can't walk but a couple feet without passing out, just hitting the ground.
Yeah.
After that shock, I went straight to my basement, put on my headphones, turned on Eye of the Tiger Rocky, and started running from wall to wall. Now, we have a 2,100 square foot home, so that was a long distance for me.
Yeah.
And about 15 minutes into it, my wife came down to check me. She's like, "What are you doing?" I'm like, if I'm going to die, I'm going to die like a man. So I ran for 30 minutes.
Again, we don't recommend that.
No.
Okay.
Yeah.
So we do not recommend that.
No. And we'll get into some tips and advice, but point is, I started recovering after the methylprednisolone steroids.
Okay.
And that brought me into what I typically do this time of year is 75 hard. And so I started a 75 hard and went to, I was working out with a buddy at the gym, and it was February 19th. I'm talking to my buddy, and all of a sudden my knees buckled at the gym, not doing any exercise. And I developed shakes. I was shaky.
Okay.
I was nervous. And I don't get nervous. And I basically just was very lethargic. And so I'm like, man, maybe I got the flu.
Sure.
So I quit 75 hard 2 days later because I couldn't get out of bed.
Good reason.
Yeah, it was pretty intense. And this is the very beginning. No one knew what long COVID was. And then a week after that, I took my daughter on a hike, and we get to the top of the mountain, and I have zero oxygen. I know I'm going to die on top of this, and it's not very tall. I mean, it is, but not to someone that's an endurance junkie. And I tried to get down as fast as possible, and I tried to just block it out when I got down from the mountain. Like just I don't know what that was. It was terrifying, but let's move past it. So I started going to doctors after that. Something's not wrong. I'm not breathing. Brain fog. I'm dizzy all the time. I just don't know what's going on. And I went to my primary care doctors, and there's 3 different doctors in there, and each one set me up on a plan to take care of my depression. And I told each one, I'm not depressed. I'm crazy. I know this for a fact, but depression is not something that is going on here. This is something else. And that went on for a couple months until I ran into an endocrinologist to test my blood. I'm like, let's go test the blood, and he goes, your blood's fine. You have long COVID. And that's the first time I heard of long COVID was from an endocrinologist.
So how many months are you in by this time?
It was the end of February, beginning of March.
Okay.
When we actually had a name for what it was.
Sure.
And then from February until April 18th. April 18th is when I went to the hospital for the 3rd time because the headaches, because lack of oxygen, and we'll get into this later, spike protein was so high in my brain, I felt like someone was twisting a knife in my forehead.
Wow.
It was the most severe pain, morning, night. I mean, just never stopped. So we go to Barnes on April 18th, 2021, and we get into the emergency room after a glorious, fun 6-hour wait.
Yeah.
Anyway, we get in there and they're like, I'm like, I got these headaches, doc. And she's like, all right, I'm going to give you an IV. It's going to take care of these headaches. She doesn't tell me what's in the IV.
Sure.
I found out later that it was ketamine. And when it started hitting my system. I reached out and I grabbed the doc's arm and I'm effing dying right now. I'm dying. She looks me in the face and walks out of the room. And I later found out, and people can correct me if I'm wrong, it's called like the K-hole when you do ketamine. And I don't know. I don't know exactly what that is.
Sure.
I never explored it anymore. But went home. We got home from the hospital about 3 a.m. and we do a lot of fundraisers for our town. We had a fundraiser the next day, and I didn't sleep at all. And I remember just watching videos of people at this event and wishing I could be there. But that experience of that ketamine hitting my system with everything going on, I just felt like I was laying there dying on the couch, like severely dying. And it was so bad that I could not sleep. I know this sounds insane. I couldn't sleep for 21 days.
I remember that.
We went to multiple doctors and they started throwing every medication at me. They could to try to knock me out. And I bit on the first 2. But what would happen is when you take these medications and you doze off, I'd wake right back up and I'd be drugged.
Wow.
And we found out later because of lack of oxygen, you got to have so much oxygen going to your brain.
Sure.
To get you to sleep. But we didn't know that. So I'm being drugged. And during those 21 days, one time I just completely snapped. And I remember sitting on the edge of my bed. I have a suicide hotline number on my nightstand. Because nothing makes sense after 2 or 3 days.
No.
You get to 2 weeks, everything is bizarre. And I snapped on 2 weeks and went to the bathroom. And I remember thinking that nothing made sense and I couldn't grasp reality. And I just started screaming hysterically. And my little 5'2" wife smacks me in the face. And she's like, get your shit.
God love her.
Get your shit together. And it snapped me out of it.
Yeah.
But that continued. The non-sleeping continued for another week. So here I am 20 21 days. And I remember laying on my floor and my wife's sleeping. I'm laying in there and I'm grasping at straws. And that's what this podcast is about. So I'm trying to teach people how to get over stuff. I'm trying to read positive material. And I'm reading a David Goggins book and just trying to grab on straws for some hope. And I remember shutting it and thinking, it doesn't matter no more. I'm gonna go kill myself. And so I I got up and I said, well, I can't do it at the house. I really don't know what I'm gonna do. I don't have the energy to leave the house. So I'm like, I'm gonna go to the basement. Maybe I can do it down here. Just remember having these thoughts. Maybe I can do it down here and it won't be so bad on the kids to find me, because I did. Man, suicide is not killing yourself. It's killing everyone you left behind. So
Absolutely.
but in that 3 weeks of not sleeping, nothing makes sense. So I go to the basement and I put headphones on and just trying to zone out. And my wife calls my mom, and my mom lives 3 hours away, 2.5, and she shows up. And I walk up the stairs right before my mom got there, and my 4-year-old, she came and gave me a hug, and I knew I could make it another day. With her arms, man, she just wrapped around. I knew I had it. So sorry.
All right, brother.
So my mom shows up. She goes into mom mode, and my wife did a great job managing everything she could. The best she could. I couldn't have done what she did. And my mom shows up, and she's like, "Okay, let's figure out how to get you comfortable." So she goes down to the basement, and she gets my favorite recliner. And I sit in my favorite recliner, and she turns on some real estate show. And we're watching like island hopping, and she's like, "Let's just get you relaxed, and maybe you'll get some sleep. Maybe not. I don't know." And so I sit in this recliner. My feet go up. In about 10 minutes, I'm blacked out. I'm out.
Wow.
I
And this
wake
is after you haven't slept.
21 days.
Yeah,
This
21
is my
days, yep.
first sleep.
Yeah.
And so I look over at my mom, and she's just smiling from ear to ear. And she's like, "You slept." And I started screaming, "I slept." Like it was aha.
Absolutely.
And that's when we found out that we didn't know at this point that I had an autoimmune disease called POTS, which is a blood circulation. That's why I wasn't
Exactly.
breathing or getting blood to the brain to sleep. But we found out when I elevated my feet, I fall asleep. So that's the tool that we started using moving forward. And I don't know if that can help anyone else out that's going
Sure.
through long COVID or vaccine injury, but a lot of this has to do with blood flow. So if you can get your blood flow, it will knock you out. So um, made it through the 21 days of not sleeping. At this time, I'm reaching out on Facebook and saying, "Hey, something's wrong. Anybody else going through this?" Um, I'm not trying to get attention. I read the post yesterday. It really took me back, but I need help. I don't know what I'm doing. And I don't remember, and I apologize if you're listening to this podcast. I don't remember who started the GoFundMe, because it was a very hard time for me. But somebody started a GoFundMe in my town.
Yeah.
And again, I don't remember the total, but I think they came up with like $13,000 or $14,000.
It was a good chunk.
Yeah.
For a small town.
Yeah, for a small town. Well, and the cool part beyond that was a lot of the businesses starting writing my names on the windows in El Gave. Did a whole night for me, and I just remember crying every time I'd see someone saying, "Hey, Tim," and they raised $13,000 or $14,000, all in order to get me to go to Mayo. So
Yes, I remember that.
Rochester, Minnesota, Mayo says, I had a phone conversation with them, and again, when you're this sick, you're grasping at straws. Hey,
Absolutely.
who can help me? I'm calling everyone, blah, blah, blah. And again, from the outside, it looked normal.
Yeah.
A lot of my friends were preaching to
Second guessing what
you're
were,
depressed. You're going through this. Doctors are saying you're depressed.
Yeah.
Everyone has the D word. going through the circles. But so I'm like, I'm gonna find this. Like, so I called Mayo, and the doc's like, we have a program for loan haulers. You need to come up here. And I'm like, sweet, take my insurance. Bad news, we don't take your insurance.
Yep.
So we took all the funds that the town raised, and my wife drove me up to Minnesota. And not to get too far into that story, but when you're suffocating, sitting down with pots is almost an impossible task because you don't get oxygen to your lungs and to your brain. So I had to roll with the window down all the way to Minnesota just to get air. And we go through 5 days of testing up there, and I have to wear a mask, which we'll get into that at a later topic. I don't believe in masks whatsoever. But so I have to wear a mask, and as I put a mask on and I'm walking down the hallways, I'm hitting the wall, I'm blacking out. My wife has to grab me and hold my arm and walk me to each appointment. And eventually it got so bad where they put me in a wheelchair and started rolling me around so I wouldn't black out.
Wow.
Well, I go through all this testing, and I met the doctor and the MD up there, and he was like a used car salesman. I knew he didn't care for this person. Another reason why we're doing this charity, because we're looking for good doctors. But this guy was like a used car salesman. He looked me right in the face, and he said, this is day 3. I still have 2 more tests to come back, right? And he goes, I can figure this all out for you, Tim, right now. And I said, that's great.
Let's go.
I'm dying. Let's knock this out real quick. He said, he drew a picture of my brain in the prefrontal cortex. And as soon as he said prefrontal cortex, I said, you're going to tell me I'm depressed, aren't you? I've heard this multiple times, so you can stop right there. He goes, Tim, stress does some amazing things. And I said, Doc, I thought this was a long COVID. He goes, yeah, but there's nothing wrong with you. Your heart's perfect.
Wow.
Your lungs are perfect. Every test has come back perfect. There's absolutely nothing wrong with you. This is all in your head. And I left there so depressed. I remember my wife driving around, and she was probably talking. I didn't hear anything. I just looked out the window like, I didn't know depression could be this bad. I started believing it when Mayo told me. For a small.
Yeah, who's not going to believe it, right?
Yeah.
You're told how many times you're depressed. Eventually, the fact that they're telling you you're depressed, you might end up being depressed.
Yeah.
Right?
That will happen. That will happen when enough people, if you start to believe it. This is where it started to get a little belief in there. Well, we had a meeting, or he called me. I don't remember how the events went down. And he's like, listen, just as I suspected, you're suffocating. And I said, that's how the conversation, I said, Doc, that's not actually what you said. I don't remember what you said. Anyway, he says, your VO2 max is 30. To put this in perspective, Lance Armstrong, his VO2 max is like 75. He says, if you're an endurance athlete, you should be 45, 50. And VO2 max is your ability to get rid of carbon dioxide. Right. So you can suck in oxygen. They put the little thing on your finger, and it showed 96, 97. So I was taking in oxygen. I just wasn't getting rid of carbon dioxide. I wasn't getting rid of the bad air that I needed. And so now we have a plan of attack.
Yes.
Now we know what's going on, right? And so they sent me home with breathable steroids. And I'm like, sweet, breathable steroids. They said, stay on it for 6 months. It was 10 days on that when we got home. And we went up to Mayo a second time for some more testing. My mom took me up there, but no answers from that one. But they put me on the steroid. 10 days on it. I take my daughters to the swimming pool to swim. And I get in the deep end, and I start talking to some of the neighbors, and my lungs just completely locked up. And I'm like, oh shit. So I jump out of the pool. I sit on one of the chairs. I'm like, okay, just catch your breath, calm down. And there was no oxygen. And at this point, everyone sees it in my face that I'm suffocating.
Sure.
And they take me home, and I get home, and I'm laying on the floor. And I remember it cost me $1,200 for that MD at Mayo to agree to a phone call, a Zoom call.
Yeah.
I'm like, Doc, I'm dying. I got this. I'm laying on the floor. I got my feet up because it's the only way I can breathe. I now have compression socks on because I know compression helps push that stuff up. And I said, man, I'm dying. You got to help me. He's like, there's nothing I can do for you. You need to stay on that steroid for 6 months. I said, Doc, it's been 10 days. I'm getting worse. He goes, well, there's nothing else I'm going to do for you, Tim. And I remember closing the computer, crying and thinking, how the freak am I going to get out of this? And on the way to Mayo, by the grace of God, I seen this video of this boxer that had long COVID. She was using hyperbaric oxygen chamber therapy. And so I started researching places that did it. And I came across a place in Chesterfield called Restore. And I remember I called multiple places, and they said, yeah, come on in. And they were just the nicest people. I mean, they literally gave me my hope to getting back on track. And I go in there and I did my first session and I started feeling better. Then I started IVs. I ended up doing 33 sessions of mild hyperbaric oxygen therapy at 1.3 ATA for any of the science geeks at home that like this stuff. So I'm like, man, if this is working so well, why don't I get one of these at home? So September 16th, so June, I started hyperbaric. In September, I bought one of these things and I had it at home. And I did 100 sessions straight, thinking more is better.
Always.
Right? It should be, you would think.
It's, yeah.
It's not. I didn't realize at the time, but I became dependent on oxygen from the hyperbaric. And so I started collapsing again through the winter. And this is something that I want to point out to people at this point, that long COVID is a vascular disease. It's caused by spike protein. We'll get into that later. It travels around your vascular system. And when the temperatures get cold, your vascular system tightens up. With that spike protein, the ball with little things sticking out of it, traveling around your vascular system, it's going to cause some issues. It causes inflammation, which then slows the amount of oxygen you get. So
Sure.
in the winter times, I would suffer way worse. And again, we'll get into that. But yeah, I did the hyperbaric from September to January. Nothing. I mean, no help. Tired of telling people that I'm hurting and suffering from this stuff at this point, but still moving forward because I couldn't let my daughters see this,
Of course.
I mean, I've told the story many times, many people, but I would literally go into the other room and I would collapse, and I never let my daughters see it one time. Actually, once they seen it, we'll get to that story, but I'd go in the other room and I'd have to lay belly down, face to the side, and just gasp for air like a fish out of water. And that's where fish out of water came from. Um, in one of the times I was doing it, I felt my soul leaving literally leaving my body. I blacked out a couple times. Never felt my soul leaving my body. I'm like, this is it. And grabbing onto my soul, I'm like, God, if you can not let me die, I'll help every single person I can suffering from this, because I've not gotten any straightforward answers from anyone. I feel like I can be a beacon of hope for people and do this if you don't let me die.
Yeah.
And so that's the birth idea of where fish out of water came from. It got birthed out of what I was going through. So, September to January, nothing. And then we jumped into 2022. And again, I'm going through all these doctors, and I came across a doctor. I'm not going to name her name. She was at the convention we were at. I'll tell you off the air because I don't want to shame anyone. But she put me on something called pravastatin. And pravastatin lowers your cholesterol, but it opens up your blood vessels. So I started taking it, and I'm like, man, this thing's a miracle. Like, I'm starting to actually get oxygen through my nose. It was really bizarre. And so I was on that for 2 or 3 weeks, and we got the opportunity, because of my obsessiveness of not stopping, to go to Naples. I was reading Tony Robbinson's book at the time. about exosomes and peptides. That was my introduction,
Sure.
was his book. And Naples offered exosomes, and I called and they said they help all kinds of people
Yeah.
with long COVID. So we take an 18-hour trip in a vehicle. Again, not a good idea when you're suffocating and have POTS and can't breathe. When we finally arrived, I collapsed. Like, we walked into the hotel room and I just collapsed, and I thought I was dying.
Mm.
Like, it was so bad, so little of oxygen, and I'm just, again, just wait till tomorrow. You're gonna get exosomes. It's all gonna be gone. And got the exosomes. Didn't sleep at all that night. Just sat there and suffered all night. And got the exosomes the next day. I remember Summer and Maya were waiting out in the waiting room for me. So it was just like, okay, I got this for them. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And got them. And man, they did nothing. I mean, just scratched the surface of what was going on. And so we drive back, and I'm working with two doctors, one that's giving me pravastatin, and then a holistic doctor, if you will.
Mhm.
And on the way back, she's telling me some things. It's just hit me the wrong way, and I'm like, yeah, I gotta wait till I get back from this trip. So we get back. I remember you and I went out and walked a piece of property
Mhm.
at this time, and we get to the bottom of this hill, and
remember
I didn't
seeing
say
your
it.
face. I remember.
I didn't
I
say
knew
it, but
something.
I'm like, I'm gonna die. And just when your oxygen leaves you, it's very terrifying, and I just can't. But you know, we've known each other for a long time.
We have.
We've been close friends since shortly after this. But at the time, I didn't know you well enough to be like, I think I'm gonna die. And plus, I'm not gonna let you carry my big butt up that hill. So
I'm sure I could have drug you halfway.
at least. So we we go home. I go home from that. My wife is at a Cincy convention.
Yep.
In St. Charles. So it's me and my four daughters were at home, and I'm like, hey, let's throw out a board game play. And now I'm hurting. I'm trying to take my mind off
Yeah.
hurting, and my children do that very, very well. And so I throw a board game up on the counter, and they're all circled around. And I go over to get a drink of water out of the fridge, and I remember hitting the water thing with my cup. And at that moment, my legs completely buckled underneath me. I hit the counter, and before I could hit the floor, I'm a big guy. I grabbed the counter just so it didn't look like,
Yeah.
I passed out to my children. I was always worried about them seeing it. And I remember looking at the one, Caitlin, who came running over to me, and I tried to say, take me to the hospital.
Yeah.
But it was like, Leonardo DiCaprio in Wolf of Wall Street when he's on one of those things where just nothing
Mhm.
comes out. And I just said, huh. That's what I was trying to say, take me to the hospital.
Sure.
I could not get it out. So I get myself over to the couch, and all I can do is put my head down. It's almost like, and I don't know what a stroke is. I relate it to having a mini stroke. My body quit. My words wouldn't work. My brain shut down. And I'm just sitting on the couch hysterically crying, trying to tell them to take me to the hospital. And it took 10 or 15 minutes for them to understand what I was saying.
Sure.
And so my oldest, Caitlin, takes me to the hospital, and I can't even look up. It's just so severe pain in my brain that I have to look down. And I get there, um, and they come in, they take me to the hospital. My wife shows up from her event, and we walk in, and the doctor comes in, and she's like, I know what long COVID is, and we're going to take care of you. And it was like,
Finally.
I heard it from a hospital.
Mm-hmm.
Wow. And so they do a bunch of testing, MRIs and CAT scans and all. That's not MRIs, but a bunch of CAT scans and stuff. And so the doctor, I come back to the room. The doctor's gone. It's shift change. There's a new doctor there. This gentleman comes in. I remember just looking at his watch, and he does a little jangle on it, and he's like, you realize there's no such thing as long COVID. All this is in your head. And all the shit that's in your chart, it's not real. You just need to get over this stuff. And I paused. I don't have any strength at this point.
Sure.
I don't have any anger in me at this point. I said, can you sign my paper so I can leave and get out of here? That'd be great.
Yeah.
But it was just, that's what's so relatable to everyone going through this.
Absolutely.
One doctor on one part of this shift said, hey, this is real. We can help you.
Yeah.
A shift change. And this guy says, no, none of this exists. This isn't real. This is all in your head.
Yeah. And to not interrupt, but God love doctors, right? I mean, God love them. We're not trying to say that they, they're bad or they're trying to do the wrong thing. It's just when you don't have the information, right? And you don't know what you don't know.
Yeah.
Well, how do you treat?
Right.
Right. So,
well, and for doctors' sake, some doctors, and for people, we're all the same, right? Some people choose to believe certain information and some don't. What is happening is not taught in the medical school right now.
Correct.
So they don't know. These doctors that want to help have to think outside the box and go against the norm.
Yeah.
So God love them.
Absolutely.
And nothing against the ones that don't, because that's the way they're taught. But when someone is in such a severe situation, it's just have some heart passion for everyone.
Correct.
You know what I mean? Doctors, people, everything included. So, that was a lot so far.
So you come out of the hospital?
Yep. I'm out of the hospital. We did, so from March, I'm out of the hospital. When I stopped pravastatin, from my veins being, opened to closing, to coming off that pravastatin, it was 14 of the hardest days of this whole thing. Because when your veins are opened and then they start squeezing again, I felt, and I journaled it, I felt like I was 450 pounds. I could barely walk.
Wow.
And me being in this tight quarters of my body, if you will, I said, well, I can't exercise. I can't walk. There's no way I can ride a bike. And so just laying there and suffering, I'm like, I need to get to a pool. And so I signed up for the Y. And it took me 14 days of showing up there every day. And every day I couldn't swim at first. So I just walked the laps and moved my body. And eventually I started being able to swim, and I'd swim down and get to the edge and I'd start crying because I was having panic attacks, because when you can't breathe and you're in water, it's pretty scary. But it started to get a little bit easier after the 14th day, where I just really got stronger, if you will. Like some people say, it doesn't get easier, you get tougher. It was one or the other, but the blood started flowing a little bit better. But here, I'm a year and a half into it at this point.
Yeah.
At this point, I've probably spent, and I don't have this in my notes, but I probably spent $75,000 with different doctors trying different things. And there's no hope, right? There's no way out. And to me, long COVID, the way that I felt is not only was I suffocating, not only did I have brain fog and I was dizzy, but like the worst flu you've ever felt, that's what I had for a year and a half so far at this point. Like the ones that people don't get out of bed and they're just shivering.
Yeah. Sweats.
Yeah. It's just not, and on top of all of that, I could only eat meat and veggies. So if I ate carbs, sugar, or ingested caffeine, my lungs would shut down. So I have all this going on a year and a half with no guiding light out of this, right? No way forward. And the only reason I'm still hanging in the game is because I have 4 daughters to raise.
Absolutely.
I'll be damned if somebody raises my kids.
Yep.
And I love my wife. I've told her from the beginning she's my soulmate, and I'm not going to leave her. But I lost hope. I lost hope.
Easy to do.
In May of 2022, just going through all this. And I'm done. Like, I'm literally telling friends, I'm telling clients, I'm like, death is coming for me within a week or two. I felt it coming. I felt my body dying. Like I was at the end. I'm not going to kill myself. That That only happened during the 21 days. I felt like I was going to die and death was there. It was grabbing me. And my wife on Mother's Day gets COVID and we freaked out a little bit. So we lock her in a room for a week. And, I took care of the kids and it gave me purpose and something to set my mind on because I'm not working much at this time. I'm not really doing anything. My wife's taking care of everything, kids, the
Yeah.
business, everything. But it felt good to do something.
Absolutely.
So I'm taking care of the kids. And I think it was day 5 or 6. I felt better than I've ever felt. I'm like, huh, I bet I got COVID. And I don't know why I correlated feeling good with having COVID for the second time, but I did. So I went and took a test and boom, I had COVID. And it was the best day that I've had in a year and a half. And I still don't know why. I'm sure a doctor will tell me why getting COVID the second time helped my long COVID out. But this time I was more proactive. I've read every medical journal there is out there, so I kind of knew what steps to take
Sure.
moving forward, and I knew I needed monoclonal antibodies. So I called to my doctor, who I just fired because she tried to vaccinate me. And had I gotten vaccinated, I found out from a doctor later, I would have died from pulmonary edema because of the amount of spike protein I had in my system.
Yep.
Vaccines add 3 times more spike protein. It would have suffocated and killed me. But anyway, so I called my doctor, who I fired because of this reason, and said, "Can you get me monoclonal antibodies?" And she's like, "I don't think that's what you need. You need this Pfizer product." I said, "If you don't get me the monoclonal antibodies, my family's not coming to you anymore." I don't know. I had to have something.
Sure.
So anyway, she got me in to get monoclonal antibodies. Get in there, they inject them in me. There's a funny story goes with that too. I'm not going to get too far in it. Come home. Remember going to the grocery store to grab something before I go home. I said, I'm gonna go home and relax. Got them at 1 in the afternoon. At 7 o'clock at night, there was a war happening in my brain. The monoclonal antibodies were fighting whatever demon spike protein
Sure.
was up there. And it literally paralyzed me. I laid on the floor and I looked up at the TV and I'm like, man, if I hadn't gone through all that stuff that I've been through for the past year and a half, I would think I'm dying or I need to go to the hospital and this is death. But it was just a normal Tuesday for me.
Yeah. just middle of the week here.
Yeah, just right there. So I fell asleep, woke up the next day, and then I started feeling a little bit better. It took away some of the suck. It didn't take away all my symptoms, but it gave me some hope. So it was just a stepping stone. Hey, you feel a little bit better. To keep going. And at this point, it's starting to get warm. And like I said, with the warm air, your vascular system opens up, and I'm like, okay, we're good. So I dropped the I'm dying thing. Really felt that go away after the monoclonal antibodies. I really still feel like I was pretty close to it at that point. So you go summer to Thanksgiving. I know I'm not dying, right?
Yeah.
But this is when I found out that I had mast cell activation syndrome, which, from my understanding, mast cell is whenever you do something in your body creates some histamine in it, and it can shut your body down. Right?
Yeah. Yep.
So anything more than walking, and again, I'm still swimming. I started lifting light weights, but there was this invisible wall there where if I'd lift too much, boom, I'd get hit with this histamine. And I'd be down for a day or two, or it would knock my sleep out completely, no matter how far my legs were. If I hung up upside down, it didn't matter. I wasn't sleeping at this point. So that's when I realized that was another demon that I had to deal with. And so that went in through the winter. But October of 2022, we went on a camping trip. And my daughter, Haley, she's like, I'm sick. I don't feel good. And we thought it was a normal flu, like it all is that type of year. And it never went away. And it's starting to last for a week, 2 weeks, 3 weeks. She's starting to drop and suffocate. It's watching myself in my child hit the floor. And at first my wife didn't want to believe it was long COVID. There had to be another explanation. So we went through the gauntlet. We did every test known to man on that poor girl. Um, and when it came back, we finally had to talk to a doctor. She's like, it could be long COVID. I'm like, and then my wife looks at me. This is the wintertime. I'm in these groups. There's hundreds of thousands of people that are suffering in these groups, and I'm talking to them. And I keep getting this reoccurring, you need to just tell yourself you're healing. The brain will accept it. And so I'm a week or two into this. I'm healing, beautiful mantra stuff.
Yeah.
Life's beautiful. I haven't really been dying for a year and a half, trying to convince myself of this,
Yep.
right? Really difficult to do. And my wife walks out of my daughter's room and goes, you need to fix this. Because I've read every single literature.
Sure. Yeah.
There is printed out there.
A little history on it now.
Yeah. Yeah. I almost have a PhD. I should probably go take the test.
Definitely got the P.
Yeah.
About the H and the T, but yes,
We'll add those later.
we'll get to it.
Yeah. And she says it out of a loving way because she knew
Sure, she
I
did.
knew what I was talking about. Not
Absolutely.
like, hey, drop it on you. And so for me, I'm into this beautiful healing phase, and it just was like I just got put back in war.
Yep.
And I have to. I'm going back to
Back
war,
in the fight.
and I'm saving my daughter's life. It has nothing to do about me no more. If I die, I die. I'm going back into this hell to figure this out to save my daughter. And it's very difficult when your daughter's 12. The medical system will treat them, but for depression, not treat them for long COVID, right? So we hit a wall there.
No different than the way they were trying to treat you.
100%. So you have to figure out, and with my wife, don't try anything on our daughter that could hurt her, and rightfully so.
Of course.
I'm experimenting with things.
You were the
at this
guinea
point.
pig.
I experimented with everything. Again, 75,000, 80,000 worth of stuff at this point. And so we're getting into the non-for-profit work. You and I, we start talking to different people. We get this going, and we'll hit this story after my story. We'll get to the end of this. But I was introduced to Dr. Jackson, who is my hero.
Yeah.
He saved my life. We'll get to that point. But I was introduced to him, and I started talking to him, and he's like, yeah, I'm doing this speak on long COVID in Vegas. You know, you guys should go. You and Rick should come. I've never even met this guy. I had to look him up. Like I had no trust. I have no trust and faith in any doctors at this point. This doctor says, come to Vegas. I got a lot of good information you want to hear. Had my daughter not been sick, I wouldn't have went, because I would have just thought it was another doctor. But since she's now dying, I have to go to Vegas and absorb everything I can. And I remember before you and I went, I developed a beautiful thing called pneumonia.
Yes.
And so here I am. I'm already suffocating. Let's put some pneumonia in there. And now I'm breathing through a straw. But
And a slight fear of flying.
you got me over that. I mean, I just got done back from a trip, and I slept the whole time. So yeah, thank you for that. I really.
I'm just adding to the anxiety part, right?
Yeah.
It's like, come on, here's this, and this. What else you got?
Yeah. What else could it be? But again, nothing mattered. I'm saving my daughter from hell.
To go along with that story, to go to Vegas, right? I remember walking into that convention, and we both looked at each other and said, okay, is that him?
Yeah.
That can't be it. No, that's him, right? And then we actually asked that young lady, we said, hey, is Dr. Jackson here? And she said, oh, no, he's not here yet. I'm like, okay, well, that's not him.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
sorry to side.
No,
I'm just trying to, so we go completely on faith.
Yeah.
Right? I mean, just jump in a plane and here we are, Vegas.
Couldn't have said it better. It was faith.
Oh,
Yeah.
Oh,
Our next convention was faith too. But
Yeah.
so Jackson talks in he gives us a lot of good information.
A lot.
I mean, basically figured out how to cure long COVID. And I was like, man, this guy made a believer out of me. Hearing him talk, getting to know his heart, just seeing how real he is. Didn't want anything from you.
No.
And that's
No.
what's bizarre on my
You know,
journey.
he does. He wants you.
That's exactly what he
That's
says.
all he wants.
But from my perspective,
Yeah.
a
No,
year
he
and a
wasn't
half,
asking for.
everyone's like, I just want you to get better. I hear it from this guy, and I'm like, there's no way. And it was.
But the difference was they want you to get better, but hey, here.
Correct.
And,
Yeah.
And then I want you to get better, but you're depressed.
Yeah.
Not one time in any of his lectures that we've sat and listened to does he talk about depression.
Yeah.
For long COVID. And we're not saying that you might not have depression, but your depression is caused from the long COVID, right?
Correct.
It's not depression caused the long COVID.
No.
Yes.
No.
Yes.
Yeah. No. 100%. The spike protein in the brain is what causes.
And again, we're not doctors, but
I got to pee, so you need to work on your.
I'll try to get the age.
Okay.
But with your experiences, right? We've been in positions, we've been in spots that we've talked to these doctors, and what we're doing is we're just repeating what they're saying. So just so everybody's
yeah.
Again, we're not doctors, but go ahead, Tim. Sorry.
But we can play one on TV.
Yes.
So he explains to me exosomes.
Yep.
And exosomes are beautiful, life-giving things. They come from a girl's placenta. A girl has a child between 18 and 24. She can't be vaccinated. She can't have an STD, and she has to have a low BMI.
Yep.
And then they freeze these little beautiful life-saving things in 80 to negative 80 degrees, right? So we come back from Vegas, and as you can imagine, I think you reached out to me a couple days. I collapsed and couldn't really get off the couch for 2 or 3 days. Just
our trip for you.
Oh, it was awful. But we brought back answers, and there was the beacon of hope. Now I now have this torch of hope that I can save my daughter. So after I cried on the couch for 3 days from suffocating, I get up, and at that point I met Dr. Flory.
Yes.
And
another wonderful man.
Oh my! So we're going back and forth and talking about spike protein detox. I'm like, man, this is what I think. And then I just scratched the surface of talking about it. The man's brain is just like I said, I'm in the little leagues. Like I'm in like the first. He's in the major leagues.
He's got the HD.
Yeah. He's got the HD
and the P.
That was good. Yeah, that was good. So we get together, and I get on some supplements to start detoxing the spike protein. And then I travel 3 hours up to Kirksville to meet Dr. Jackson. And again, I'm still suffocating very bad at this point, but I have to try this to see if it'll work for my daughter. And get up there, and I ended up doing, so you get 75 billion of these beautiful things. And I took a third of them through a nebulizer, and 2/3 I took through just a little push in the arm. And nothing crazy right away.
Sure.
And I say right away, like within the first couple minutes. I'm driving home, and I remember calling you and talking to you. And I get I get 2 hours away, and I stop to get gas, and I get out to pump gas, and for the first time in 2 years, 3 months, in 8 days, I can take a full breath in every part of my lung without an elephant sitting on my chest. And I called my wife immediately and started crying and said, "It worked.
Yep,
I can breathe." And it, I don't know how to explain that moment. Like all the crap, right? All the bad stuff, and just pumping gas. Boom. It all came back
Lights on.
from and it was that quick.
Yep.
Right. It was 2 hours. My lungs were back, and they came back so strong that 2 weeks later, a friend of mine, Dr. Max Orris here in town, he said, "Hey, let's go get our VO2 max test." Now in Mayo, mine was 30. And so Max goes first, and I can't remember what his numbers were, but they said, "Get on." And I'm thinking, I have mast cell activation syndrome. I'm suffocating. I have all these doubts
Yeah, here we go.
in my head. And I looked at the guy and I said, "I really hope I just make 2 minutes on this treadmill." And he goes, "Just do everything you can." He goes, "There's no right or wrong." And so we start running. I start running. The elevation goes up, and it goes up, and it goes up, and it goes up. And I'm running at 10 elevation.
Yeah.
And the time goes up, and the time goes up, and the time goes up. And he's like, "You're at 12 minutes. You're at 14 minutes." He goes, "Let's push you to 20." And I said, That's probably where we need to stop. I haven't ran like this.
Yeah.
And so we stop and we get off and we look at the printout. And he looks me in the face and he goes, "I don't know how to tell you this." And I'm thinking a low number.
Yeah.
He
5.
goes, "Were you an endurance athlete?" And I said, "I was before I got sick." He goes, "Here's the model. It goes green to yellow to red. Red means your body's getting ready to shut down." He goes, "You never touched red." He goes, "I pushed you as hard as I could possibly push you. You never touched red. You went from green to yellow back to green."
Wow.
He goes, "So what I'm telling you is, can't measure your VO2 max because you broke my machine." And eyes just mouth wide open,
Absolutely.
like exosomes.
Yeah. Yep.
Dr. Jackson,
Yep.
my God, it was a godsend. Like,
Yeah.
had my daughter not gotten sick, I would have not went to Jackson
Sure.
to heal myself. And then I started peptides the
Yep.
same day I started the exosomes. I'm not telling anyone to do this without medical advice. But
Absolutely
I
not.
started thymosin alpha 1, which helps your body's immune system correct itself, because the spike protein will have your body attacking itself. And then I started thymosin beta 4, which helps the body repair itself. And I don't know what's special about gas pumps, but 10 days after I started my peptides, before I went and got my VO2 max test, me and my wife are out in Union, and I get out and I'm pumping gas. And I felt this amazing feeling come across my brain. And it was kind of like, just like this hand waved my brain. And I felt all my long COVID symptoms just vanish in that moment.
I remember you called me and told me about it.
Yeah, it was crazy. I poked my head in the car and I'm like, I look at my wife. This is over 2 years now.
Yeah.
And I said, "I'm not sick anymore." And she's like, "Okay." I'm
Yeah.
like, "No,
Yeah.
something just happened and it's gone." And she's like, "Really?" And I couldn't believe it. So, and it did. It for the most part stayed away. And then we decided to get my 12-year-old exosomes right after that, because we seen that how well it was working for me.
Right.
And we got her the exosomes, and it was within a week she was better.
Yeah. I remember her
Yeah.
going not too long after that to her swim meet.
Yeah, yeah. So but that's it for her and I, or for anyone going through this. It's an invisible disease, like all diseases are invisible. We didn't have a correct course on how to attack this. No one was helping us. So to know if we're better is kind of trial and error, right?
Absolutely.
I feel better. Is it going to come back?
Yeah.
So that's where her and I lived, and I had to stay positive for her, scared out of my mind, thinking it could come
course.
back. But like, just every day, just reassuring her that she's the strongest human being I have ever met. I mean, for a child to go through that,
Yeah.
and to keep the sense of humor she has and the love in her heart, and fear, she went to select swimming shortly after that. And to have that sort of confidence,
Yeah.
just is amazing. So, I couldn't say enough amazing things about her will to go. And with her, we're going to have her on a podcast, and we're really going to try to help, because there's a lot of children,
There is.
going through this, and you're going to get misdiagnosed. You can get misdiagnosed. Let me correct what I'm saying. When you go to the doctors, she got misdiagnosed a lot, and I wasn't taking the depression card for my child, who's the happiest kid I've ever met in my life. So we're going to have her on, and we'll talk to her down the road about kids and, long COVID and vaccine injuries. But that'll be another podcast. So I'm going to finish my story up. So I'm on these 2 peptides,
Exosomes.
and I did the exosomes, and I did a 3-month cycle of the peptides, and there I am, doing an event, Backyard Olympics, for the soccer association here in town. And right in the middle, I felt my knees buckle, like it buckled the first time.
Yep.
I'm out of the peptides now for 8 days now.
Yeah, I remember.
And it hit me, and I'm like, oh man, the demon's back. The demon is back. But it was only for a day or two. It was my PTSD jumped up. I jumped back on some more peptides. Since then, I jumped on BPC 157, and that helps the body recover. That really took care of the suffering issues until, we ran into Dr. Jackson again, and we found out that your thymosin gland has a lot to do with this. And again, this isn't doctor information, but once we started taking peptides to treat our thymosin gland, I can now run.
Yes, you can.
And I'm healed. I can now work out and healed. I can now push myself and healed. Going from a man whose workout was sometimes sitting on his front porch in a rocking chair, just rocking because he wanted exercise and that's all he could do.
Yeah.
To now, like I'm training for an Ironman next September. Like what we have found through proper doctors is amazing. And that's pretty much my story in a nutshell, which leads us to why we're doing what we're doing.
Yeah. So, we've had many conversations about how to make the best of the information that we are getting, right? And in order to do it, we and our amazing team here at Fish Out of Water have created this beautiful program to where we don't enable anyone, we truly help them. And, I know from you and I know from our team that the best feeling in this world is to truly, truly help someone. Not enable, but help, right? So a quick, brief hit on our nonprofit, the way we work is if you are hurting from long COVID, you get on our site, which is FOWUS.org.
That's FOWUS?
Yeah,
.org?
US.org.
I know, I just wanted to say it again because I like it.
So you get on there and we get you started. You make a little short video about yourself, which adds a little bit more accountability, right? It just gets you involved, right? Now you're part of the family. Okay. We're going to get you a spike protein test. And then once we see that you got some spike protein in your system and you're truly affected by long COVID,
let's put a pin in that real quick. Spike protein is, from what we're told, this isn't us.
Yep.
From doctors, you get spike protein with COVID, and you get 3 times more spike protein with the vaccine.
From the information we've received. Yes.
Correct. And those that are suffering from long COVID, it comes from the spike protein. Okay. Sorry.
Just
wanted to
Nope.
educate
Absolutely.
people because I find in my circles, I talk about spike protein like, whoa, slow down. What are you talking about?
Correct.
Okay.
So we get you the test. We confirm, yep, you have long COVID, right? So once we do that, we open you up to our wonderful, amazing, well-educated doctors, and we start to get you treatments.
Mm-hmm.
So the way that the money is raised is Tim and I, you're going to see our ugly faces out more. And we're going to go and talk to companies that want to help, and all businesses, people, individuals, and you can go right on the site and donate right to a person directly to their campaign. And the money goes in an account and it pays for their treatment. No one that enters this website will receive a check for any money whatsoever, because we've all seen what giving people money can do. I'm not saying everyone, but what it can do, right?
Well, and if you're in my situation, and that's the point I'm going to get to. I spent $120,000.
Yes, you did.
If my wife hadn't taken over the business and somebody would have handed me money, I would have paid for my rent.
Sure.
I would have paid for my groceries.
And we're not saying that's wrong.
No, absolutely.
But at the end of the day, the goal is to get you better.
Yes.
Right? To get you healed so that you can get back out into the rest of your life. Right? So the process, we think, is quite amazing because it truly, truly gets people back to the life that they want to live. And in a great side note, it actually helps them get back to work, which,
Gets
we're
their life
hurting
back.
on a lot of people are hurting for helpers everywhere in business. So, we're going to continue doing our podcast. We're going to continue spreading this love, this information, so if you're hurt, go on FOWUS.org. Okay. And if you want to open up your heart and you want to help someone, go on FOWUS.org.
Well, and it's cool because the way we have created it, you can click on the people's videos.
Right on them.
You can see their story. They're real human beings that are going through this. And the reason it was created this way, like I said a couple times, I seen 36 different doctors, went to the hospital 4 times, spent over $120,000, right? There was no help in there. There was no love.
No.
There was no support. We have created this website with COVID literate medical professionals.
Yes.
They're educated in this. They know what they're talking about. They know how to fix you. And they're not taking your money.
No.
We're giving them money to help you. It's a win-win. Had this been on my nightstand when I was sick, I would have needed a suicide hotline phone number.
Absolutely.
I would have had a fish out of water website to go to find hope. This is why this is created. This is my promise to God. And I couldn't have done this without you and the rest of FOW. Like this is something powerful we're doing.
It is.
In each episode we do, we're gonna have people on that will have survivor stories. People that have been through long COVID and vaccine injury and found a way through. We're gonna have people on here to inspire you, to show you what you're going through can be overcome. That you can always get to the other side. No matter what.
We're creating a family.
My new friend Jen just told me that.
A true family.
Yeah.
Really?
Yeah.
A loving, healing, God willing family.
Yeah.
I mean, that's just what it is. It's what it should be, right? The way the world is going, we all see it, we all hear it, watch it. We need more love. We need more hope and faith in every day. And that's what, and I know this because every convention we've been to, and we love them, and thank God the people are inviting us because we enjoy going to them, and we learn so much, and we get to be around some amazing people that truly just want to help, and they're doing everything they can to figure out how to help and figure out the right steps to take. And let's not talk depression, right? Let's talk love and faith and get you back to what you should be and where you were before all this nasty stuff happened.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's
our next episode. We'll have to tell them about
we've got some amazing
the convention.
We got some amazing stories, but truly, yeah. So hey, I want to tell everyone a quick snippet. So, we are starting this from scratch, right? I mean, what we're doing, to my knowledge, is not in the world of nonprofits, right? So I ask everyone to kind of bear with us a little bit.
Yeah.
You know, we're
Yeah.
going to make it. We're going to help you. We're going to get you what you need.
Mm-hmm.
We're going to give you your life back.
Mm-hmm.
And we're going to do it with a smile. We're going to do it with love and make it happen.
We're gonna get there. We're gonna grow this.
But we need you. We need you to step up. If you're hurt, get a hold of us.
If you're a doctor and you're listening to this and you have information that can help, we would love to talk to you. I mean,
So that's a great point. So in this process, we're not saying that the doctors that we have are the only things you can use. If you want to bring your doctor to our
yes,
website,
that is a good.
we will confirm that they're a COVID literate professional,
Mhm.
right? And if they have a new procedure, hey, we're in. Let's see. Let's try this. You know, we're not saying that what we're doing is the only thing, because we know that there's some very smart people out there. You know, we just watched that nice deal you sent me the other day about that other doctor, right? So there's a lot of information out there. We've got some really good stuff. It's helped you out immensely.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I would say, just to finish all of my story, I get asked all the time because I had to go back through my journals and I posted some on Facebook, and I really didn't tell my story on Facebook because
Of course,
I'm not a complainer. Not that people on Facebook are. I just didn't want to complain because I wanted to find answers.
Yeah.
And so to give a diagnosis when I see people, they're like, how you feeling nowadays? And I tell them with a smile, I'm about 98% better. The 2% is mental stuff. You know, when you
course.
go through hell for that
PSTD.
long, it's severe, and that's the best way to tell people, like, you know, the American sniper. I bring this up a lot. You know, the greatest sniper of all time in war, helping out his buddies, right? When he came home, he was miserable.
Yeah.
And he kept going back to help out. And that's
Help his brother.
that's my 2% right now.
Yeah.
I feel like I can't go back to my normal life. First of all, I made a promise to God. But second of all, it's estimated that 33 to 50 million Americans are suffering from long COVID that have went to the doctor. And that's an estimation.
Sure.
I mean, we all know the estimations
Sure.
that they did on COVID and the death toll. This is an estimation. So with what we know about how the spike protein affects people, it could be far greater than that. So we're going back. I'm going back. We're going in this together as a group, and we're going to be educating, giving hope, and helping those people through the site. You know,
Yeah.
and in the beginning, I was giving out my number, but I just wasn't sleeping because I literally was talking to every single human being I could, and that was my purpose. So I've taken that back, and now we're going to start using it the proper way so I can sleep and heal.
Yeah.
And the website is it's a godsend. It
is.
really is. And I don't mean to put that much into it, but it's my heart and soul. It's your heart and
It is.
soul. It's my years of suffering to come through here and say, we don't want anything from you, but we got you.
We'll help you.
We got you. We're going to take
We're
care
going to
of
help
this.
you. We're going to give you love, and we're going to treat you the way that everybody wants to be treated.
Yeah.
Right?
Like a human being.
Yeah.
You don't want to go to the doctor. And what I've seen,
Yeah.
15 minutes of typing on the computer, they already diagnosed you when you came in.
Mhm.
We're going to get you in touch with those people that listen to you, have seen this,
Yes.
have seen hundreds of thousands of cases of this,
Yes.
and we're going to continue to grow. Right now, we are in all 50 states with our COVID literate medical professional doctors. We can help people in all 50 states.
This episode of Fish Out of Water is back on shore, but our journey continues, unraveling the mysteries of rocky post-COVID health seas. We've made the expensive mistakes navigating so you don't have to. Let's keep sailing towards hope and healing. Thanks for joining our voyage. We'll be back soon with more discoveries.